Good and interesting rules for hirelings, henchmen, and the like. Well, that's right up my alley. Posted by Martin Eden. I'm working on a little homebrew system for use with friends. I haven't played with hirelings enough to have a strong opinion on how hirelings should work. My default would be to just copy the rules from BX via some retroclone, but I wonder if there are other takes on hirelings and henchmen that are worth looking at first to get a greater diversity of ideas. What systems, blog posts, random tables should I look at? What are your favorite additions to the standard rules or your favorite entire systems? By rules, I mean things like how you hire them, how you stat them, morale, pay, shares of treasure, etc. So for hireling rules, just because of the troublesome nature of some of the creators, I don't like to send people to it. But I thought Lamentations of Plain Princess has really good stuff for hirelings. I'm not sure, and I think they have a free version of the rules. You may be able to get their rules free. I usually use some combination of that and just BX, and I just like to use morale rolls and reaction rolls to kind of control what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I think I've posted it before. I'll throw it in here. I have my own. I created this myself. A generator. I'll throw this in the chat. Hirelings.hex.press gives you random guys. I went kind of. I sort of really embraced kind of a sort of a goofy. I don't know, kind of gonzo on this, but a little bit. So, for example, you have 50 of them, and if you want to get more, you can hit those buttons. You'll get more. When you open these, each one of these, so you'll see, okay, this, and I think I took the all the different occupations, I think was from Lamentations. So I give you the stats, I gear them up for you, and then I also give a little bit of try to give it a little bit of a personality. I just kind of have fun with it. So I'll just read this one in case you're listening and not watching this. So this one is Run V the Accountant. I won't read through the stats, but she's geared up with simple clothes, a club, a mirror, and a flask of ale. And then there's the note that says she's 33 years old, born in the fall, under the sign of the drowned prince of the endless dusk, aspect of harvest, is extremely irresponsible, an above-average accountant, likes to work, and has a strong fascination with women. And I don't do a lot of editing of these in terms of logic, right? So I just let it roll. So the fact that she's a pretty good accountant but is extremely irresponsible, hey, that's just a dichotomy of her life. And then if you go to export, you get this thing that you can grab and paste in and put into a text file or anywhere else. And you can actually export all those in the same way. Has all the names and then has all their individual stuff. So that I will use that to generate it. Sometimes we'll even just come here to generate names. You get a lot of goofy ones, but I do like some of the ones. I like Holtmang. There would be one I would grab. Marward, Balvald, Derwamba, Earlhug, Helmo. Helmo's a good one. Helmo. Anyway, so I'll be curious to see what the comments are, and obviously you guys that are in the chat and in the stream right now, let me know what tools and mechanics you use. Let's see, this is one that's the most, before I forget, let's upvote your fellow Redditor. There you go. Let's see some of these things what these guys are saying. Third Kingdom 1, which is I think the highest upvoted comment, says, I typically encourage PCs to hire as many retainers as they would like and also encourage the use of retainer quote-unquote trees. I prefer to run games with the PCs at mid to high levels, just as they're entering the domain phase, which is really, I think, the sweet spot for playing with retainers. The way I work things is that each PC that goes on and adventures gets one full share. First tier retainers get half share. Second tier retainers of the first tier get a quarter share, etc. When a player is actively playing their PC, any of their retainers present are NPCs. But when a retainer is just by themselves, alone or part of a larger party, I let their player control them. This lets the party do multiple things at once, dividing up stuff based on level. Second tier retainers clear the easy dungeons, while first tier retainers clear wilderness hexes, while the main PCs are doing domain level stuff, running domains, researching spells, etc. I wrote a book called Into the Wild, which goes into this a bit. I mean, that's a pretty darn interesting system. Let's see. Raid-LC. I will eventually get all these names right if I'm not getting them right off the bat. It says, Barrow Maze's Meat Shields website is pretty famous for OSR. I don't think I've used that one. I'll have to check it out. I like this guy's system. It makes me want to look up Into the Wild. It seems it's more almost like you have basically essentially a group of PCs of different levels, and then they can all be going out doing different things. And unless one of your higher PCs is there, you control the lower one. But if your main PC is along, your high level one, then you control the high level one. It's kind of interesting. I actually like to kind of simulate what the retainers do or the NPCs do when they're on their own. This gives you a lot of interesting things. And I also want to encourage the PCs to be thoughtful about what they decide to send a retainer or a hireling to do versus a regular PC, because the hirelings, by their nature, at least the way I play them, they're just not as good. And not only in terms of, okay, well, this is a level 0 and NPC and you're level 2, but they're not going to make as good decisions. They're just not as on the ball. Because what I want to avoid is send out the NPC, and the NPC always succeeds or always does it, and that just tends to, I think, funnel them towards just feeding stuff out to the NPCs. I want them to send out the NPCs only to do stuff that is really below them, or that is a specific skill set that they don't have, or something that's really specific, and not just we can just get an instant win by sending them out. And I'm not suggesting that Third Kingdom 1 is saying that, but that's just how I tend to do it. All right, I'll read one more here. This is from Investigator Hungry. He says, or they say, here's what I do. PCs need to spend time and money putting out notices for hire. This will cost them gold pieces to put out flyers, hire a town crier, and hang out in the tavern waiting for candidates to come in. I have ready-made level 1 adventurers of every class ready to go. Generally, human fighters and thieves are the most common. Along with this, I can just whip up basic non-classed humans to be hired on as torchbearers and the like, either with 6 hit points or I'll roll a d6 if I want some variety. The party and I will then play through the interview and haggling process to learn the process of learning the personalities of potential hirelings and henchmen. We will gloss over or speed up the in-between periods where no one appears. I have what's essentially an encounter table I roll on to determine who appears on a given day. I use the BX 2d6 table for rolling offers / accepting offers when I am not sure if they're offering a good deal. If they can agree on wages and treasure shares, then I'll roll a 2d6 for each hireling to determine their starting morale value and make adjustments to that score or to the score based on the results of the hiring process. From there, they adventure, and I keep track of morale during encounters as well as at the end of adventures to see if they stay in the employ of PCs. Eventually, over time, they may stop requiring the morale checks at the end of adventures if they're treated well and form a bond with the party. Yep. I mean, it's kind of very similar to, I think, the Lamentations, also BX kind of style. All good. All good stuff. I'm always down for hirelings, and that's one thing that I just think that in 5th edition, the modern game, they've kind of gotten away from that. And I mean, I feel like there are decent reasons for it, but on the other hand, it adds so much flavor to the game. I know that my players seem to have a lot of fun role-playing, chatting with the hirelings. The hirelings are great for being able to inject lore or inject just some atmosphere. If you want to portray something as scary, have it start scaring the hirelings. If you want to talk about something that maybe is not really evident or obvious in the scene in a world building way, in a lore way, have a hireling mention. This used to be the watchtower of Amun-Sul, right? That kind of stuff. So I really think they're a great tool. And of course, you can have a lot of fun depending on how the PCs treat them, depending on what the randomness of the dice give you, how trustworthy are these hirelings, what might they do when they get in trouble. It's a source of so much, I think, of so much kind of fun and intrigue. And it's so simple. You just throw them in the party and they're there. It doesn't really take a whole lot. So I wish that they would, I guess, re-emphasize that tool. But 5th edition, just in general, makes things a lot more complicated for some things. And I know it would be more complicated for hirelings, or especially if they had retainers with PC levels. But nice thing about OSR is it's much easier to manage in those senses.